Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are checking out SSS1-7. There is some PvP that has been going on over a couple flags between, from what we can see, RK3, VM3, and then we have KONs, or KONs. I don't know if there's any other alliances that are here, but this is some nice open field play we're seeing with some quality numbers, which I'm always a fan of being able to record and get you guys as much action as possible. So, and again, I was hit up. Got to give a huge shout out, as always, to Zero, or Doofin, as they're known, who did hit me up and let me know about the fighting. Always got to give, like I said, some flowers and credit where it's due. All right. So seeing a nice kind of heads-up play here. Front line, pretty standard. Looks like a Madeline Garwood, possibly some Nika or more Madeline Garwoods that we're seeing. Another one right here on the second layer. Ground pound being thrown out. Again, I like how it actually kind of seems a little spread, a little clumping here, but this actually for one moment looked like it was a little bit more spread out. Again, one of the big things we talk about typically when you're trying to have good positioning for big fights is that you want to make sure that you're spreading out in that type of a crescent moon shape, or even if it's just kind of a straight line or almost a slight curved line. And the main reason for that is because you want to try and reduce the amount of AoE damage that you are taking, and then hopefully dishing out more than what you're taking. And by simply spreading out your offensive line, it allows for you to also spread out the amount of damage that any kind of condensed or bulked or hived group of legions would take. So it typically is a little bit more of a benefit. Let's see, are we getting a little bit of flanking? This is kind of the thing. So it's actually kind of a hill choke that we're on. Oh, wow. So is this building pushing? Yes, so they are. So they got 13.5 minutes up here, I see. So they're basically trying to build up the ramp choke right now. This is really, I would say, the opportunity. Wow, man, this actually isn't bad. So this is interesting. So you got KON, VM3 trying to get a build off here on the side too as well. I love the overhead play here. And this is one of those things that I'm talking about. Look at this. So you got Butterfly, who was doing some hits, and oh, let's see, never mind. They're kind of going back and forth now. Let's see. So they are taking, I think the negative for those numbers we were seeing there could have been for the counterattack damage. Yeah, man, this is just, that's my thing, man. My thing on this, and again, I'm most likely going to make a separate video on it, is I just really wish they removed counterattack damage. I think the fact is like, and I've said that, and I'll always say this, right? Because I truly believe it, is if you want your game to get to the next level, which is, don't get me wrong, the PvP in COD is already better than any other kingdom builder on the market, currently phenomenal. However, the challenge with something like counterattack damage is that you are almost creating a handicap, if you will, for players that do not need to be paying attention actively as much, or not allowing for a higher level or kind of an entry level way of how they do strategy and tactics and kind of a true skill. Because you're essentially saying, hey, we're going to allow for just this free damage to be dealt the moment that you get attacked. Instead of where how I view it should be. Players should have to click on their units, their legions, and then select the legions they want to attack. If you are not selecting and attacking a unit, then you're not taking or you're not doing any damage to anyone, right? Like, for example, if you had, here, I'll give you another example. If you had this guy, Enric, attacking Orion, Orion wouldn't move. Orion's unit would just still be there, taking all that damage for free, until Orion came online and said, okay, let me select my unit and then now attack that player that we just saw, Enric, right? And then you'd start doing damage on them. That, to me, is what I would absolutely love to see. I think that if that happens in a kingdom builder, especially if it happens in Call of Dragons, you are going to immediately see the game become more free-to-play friendly, and now whales or just mid-high level spenders would not necessarily have as much of an advantage, so to speak. It doesn't mean that the advantage isn't there. What it means is that it's really more so from the other end, giving the free-to-play players more opportunities to where they can apply, to where the game overall can be more focused on again, good positioning, good tactics, good strategy, good coordination, good organization, more so than where it's weighted heavily towards, who's kind of spent the most money, right? That's going to be able to kind of have the most impact. In this case, now you could arguably have a super active alliance of free-to-play players. Sure, even though maybe they're not all T5 yet, right? Maybe they're T4, but they're still able to impact and potentially win more consistent matchups because of the fact that you now don't have this type of handicap system where you're attacking and then you're automatically getting damage that's put back out to you. That to me is really what I would love to see the game's direction go in, because I just think that now you'd be kind of getting it to more further diving into that type of traditional RTS style gameplay that I really think is the future of Kingdom Builders. And I think with the range play that you're seeing in COD, again, this is amazing. I love watching these fights. This is enjoyable to me. More so than any other Kingdom Builder that I've played and or I've seen content or fights from, whether that be on YouTube or somewhere else. Okay, so now we're actually getting a little bit more of a line here. This is kind of becoming a little sexy, but I would like for it to be a little wider. You're seeing a little bit more bunching coming up here from VM and RK3, right? You see a big pocket right here, another big pocket right here. If you're noticing the multiple negative reds, that usually is being done from a lot of AoE damage, right? And typically, and I want to say KON kind of doing a goodish job, at least for a moment before the pullback. These units should be pushing up. And then again, spread out here like this where my mouse is. Go all the way around here, right? All the way to the front of this level 5 fort. Again, north of the mountain range and all the way here, right below this elite. Or what is that, a common dark chest? Oh gosh, come on, tutorial person. This is what happens when you have new accounts. Almost everything you click on is going to prompt a tutorial or a pop-up. Kills me. But again, right, this is not bad positioning here. I do like how they're trying to kind of somewhat take advantage of hitting the flank here from the building. Excuse me, from the flag that they are building, or the building of the flag. Again, they probably would need a few more, though, to really kind of take advantage of that. It would have been nice if maybe we see some other people. Ooh, this is a flank. Oh, you got UEH over here. Oh, you got Super Saiyan. Is he watching the flank here? Interesting if he is. Dude, if he is, this is actually kind of a dope heads-up play here from Super Saiyan, kind of paying attention to the flank right there on that cav unit. That was actually a good catch and shows a little bit higher of tactical intellect and strategy when you're thinking about beyond just the kind of front fight, right? Or the, gosh, what's the word that I'm escaping? It's going to come to me eventually. But in short, kind of right wherever that front line is, that's what we're trying to see, the front line of the battlefield. And you're also thinking about, again, whether it's, and this is kind of the northwest, right? This would kind of be considered the southeast, right? And now you're seeing a little skirmish playing out here on the side. And you can make the argument, right? Whoever kind of gets advantage on being able to flank or kind of pick off from the side or from behind, right? Those can also factor into how kind of the main fight is happening on the front line when it comes to how many legions or resources you're going to have to defer over to assist on another side of your front line or of wherever the main fight is happening. And that can impact who then leverages or who has more numbers advantage here and there. I want to point out, I do like how at least it appears to be that the UEH and KON group is kind of moving a little bit more in unison with them withdrawing. And not necessarily falling all the way back, but it kind of feels as though maybe that they're falling back to a certain area or a certain next line. Again, this is where you look to re-engage on those opportunities. This isn't bad too as well. Look at multiple units kind of single focus firing down JD here. Right, and again, unit being crushed, they did not take a lot of damage. That's kind of how you want to play that scenario out. In this case, having these units hitting Super Saiyan while the front line falls back, and then think of it again like you're doing. If you ever watched a kind of an army movie where you have units that are retreating, right? And I'll give you the example again. Let me do it this way. So you might have one person who's firing here. This person falls back, and then they're firing. And then this person falls back, they're firing, this person withdraws, right? That's kind of the simple version of it. This is something that you can apply here on the field, which I don't really necessarily know if we've seen that happen to where it's been so visually apparent, but it is something that could happen. But now you're seeing KON and UEH putting some pressure here on VM and RK3, pushing them back a little bit. This is the thing when you are kind of counter-pushing, is you don't want to necessarily get into a situation where you're overextending too much. In this case with Super Saiyan, I would not have gone that forward. What I would have done is I would have pushed up. I would have, again, if that's where the landscape is switching or if it's moving in that direction, you push up. There we go, trying to hold that one back from somewhat of a safe-ish distance, right? While you're still aggressing, but just trying to minimize as much damage as you're taking, essentially by not going all in, right? You want to kind of lead the charge that's forcing the players to push back, but also, in addition, it can't just be the tank or the Madeline Garwoods or the Nika Madelyns or if it's Garwood Madeline, if it's Garwood Alistair, whatever it may be, right? It can't just be the tanks or the off tanks that are pushing the charge. You have to make sure that your supporting legions, as far as your DPS legions, etc., are also moving together with you in unison, right? Oftentimes, what we're usually seeing is kind of, I don't know if I want to say something like this, but I wish I could give a little bit better of an example that's happening. But typically, it's more kind of single line withdrawals where you're noticing that, for example, if you were to draw a line across here, not everyone's moving back at the same time. It's kind of sporadic retreating, or typically retreating that's kind of going down a single line. And then sometimes you'll kind of get that, where you'll notice that's what's happening when they're falling back. And also kind of resetting your lines, I think, is really important too as well, where if a line, and the Lord of the Rings thing is the example I usually give, where if you remember kind of the big fight that happened in the Return of the King, the final movie, and you had the cavalry that ended up showing up, right? There was moments where they said we have to reform the ranks, right? And that's where everyone kind of gets back in line, across, so that way they're able to re-engage. And those are things that I really love about something like Call of the Dragons that, in my opinion, just, again, this is why I talk about it, and this is never a slight or a shot at anyone, it's just, I truly believe that the standard level of where we are when we're viewing and looking at things strategically is so much higher. The ceiling for the level of strategy, the level of tactics, the level of coordination, communication, etc., the ceiling is high, is a lot higher than where we currently are based on what we're seeing from as many PvP fights that I've seen. Now, there have been moments and glimmers of, and again, here's kind of a somewhat smallish example, right? I mean, they're spread okay, but there's still a good bulk that's happening here in the middle. In this situation, they're again, instead of being like this, be like this, right? Spreading out. That is, to me, I think, kind of basics that you're looking for. And even if you're not all in voice, you still have the opportunity to do nice Shadow Games play getting thrown out there, at least hitting 2 units. Let's take a look and see a lot of the marches that we're looking at right now. So we got some Lilia Waldeers, we got a Nico primary, we got some Lilia Waldeer, I got a Madeline Garwood up there, I got a Lilia Waldeer here. I got a Nico Kanara, it looks like. Craig. Looks like Craig Frager, if that's right, from what I'm seeing there. Let's see what we have on the other side. We got some Velns, okay. We got is this a Frager Kanara? Is that, if I'm seeing that right? It is. So that's Frager Kanara. Interesting. We got a Nico over here. Kanara. We got 2 Nikos. I got a Guanwin. A couple Velns that we're seeing. Some Atheist Theas there in the back for comps. Again, this looks like Madeline Garwood. If I have to zoom in a little bit more, I can't see it because it looks like it's the opposite way. Probably see it in a sec when the unit. I wonder if you can still see. Oh, you can't. Oh, maybe I can. Nika, I couldn't really make out the silhouette there. They're ghosts silhouetting to a little bit too there. Let's see what else we got. Let's see if we can talk about some artifacts. Let's just see a few more getting thrown down. Nice acid breath. Oh, you can see that being thrown right there. Right, that's kind of an AoE damage over time effect that is going to be doing some DPS. Also applies some slow effects as well. Shadow Games. This is probably one of the most used, I think, artifacts that we typically see. Shadow Games essentially kind of throwing out multiple kind of machine gun-like spurts. Can damage up to 3 units and is pretty heavy on its damage factor as well. Steady shot. Nice. Tears of Arbin being thrown down there. You kind of see the AoE, mass AoE healing. This actually was pretty OP. It used to be able to heal up to 10 legions, which was just insane. And I think it went for 5 or 6 recurring heal procs. Now they've reduced it. I believe it's up to 4 that you can heal for. And again, for just a little bit less longer than what it previously was. I definitely need to keep reading up on these. I love being able to talk about the artifacts, skill usages as well, in certain comps. It's one of the things I try to do whenever I can. I'm not, again, due to my time constraints and restrictions sometimes, doesn't always give me the opportunity, but I love being able to just kind of going through the hero list here, and I'll just click on everything, just do that, and I'll do it for each person. I try to do it, my hope is once a day. It doesn't always happen that way, and I'll just read through all the skills just so I can, you know, try to keep that kind of fresh in mind. And then I'll do the same thing with artifacts. So I'll go here, I'll click replace, I'll click on one, I'll just read it, I'll look at what it is, and then I'll just read what the thing is as well, and then what the name, because this is the name that'll show up, right? It's not going to show up as Greymar's Warhammer, it's going to show up as Ground Pound. So anytime you see that, I can just look and say, oh, well, this deals damage up to 4 units, right? And then that's kind of the starting point. Once you get that down, right, then you can expand and do more. But it's the same thing. You just go through it real quick. You look at all the names. And so that's something that I try to do so I can be as privy and be able to speak to these things while we're doing our commentary and or color commentary or analytical commentary that we're providing. So, all right. Time bomb getting thrown out there. Right, time bomb is interesting. I think this is on I think it's a 8 or 10 second delay, and it can damage up to 3 legions, which you just saw there, right? -3, and that's kind of, you know, a nice kind of budget friendly, more kind of free to play, low spend option, especially if you don't have some of the more higher ones. Like Shadow Games really is kind of more of what I would consider. If you're now, don't get me wrong, you can get Shadow Games still, but you know, when you see those types of artifacts being used as frequently, it's typically because they usually have them a little bit higher skill leveled, or we should just say powered up or more invested in. And most of the time, those are being used because they're at a point where it's not just like an entry level, so to speak, where you just don't have them at level 1. I mean, maybe you still would, but in most cases, typically it's kind of that mid-heavy or higher spend players that are usually using them from what we see. All right, let's see here. A little bit of pressure being applied. So in these situations where you're going in, I wouldn't just go in with one unit, as Naked Banana is kind of. I would go in with a few. It doesn't mean it has to be 10 or 20, but go in with a few and then focus the units that are doing the PvP on you, that are actually attacking you, because they'll be doing more damage most likely than the ones that are building. So you focus those units first, and then you can go and attack the builders. Why? Because they're not prioritizing attacking you, they're prioritizing building. So you make sure that you kill off essentially all the PvP units. I think Naked Banana is overextending a little bit too much here. Again, form your line. Especially if you're able to hit from the high level and the low level, attack the units that are doing the PvP first, and then go and work. And so you just saw a ground pound there from Greymar's Warhammer, right, up to 4 units that you're able to damage. Why? Because we just read it, and thankfully my short-term memory loss didn't kick in that hard where we forgot. So, because it does every once in a while. But again, I think it's interesting if we count the amount of kind of physical DPS versus magic DPS comps that we're seeing. Part of it, I guess, feels like it still leans more magic. Like, even in this, you got 1, 2... I mean, pretty much 2 right there for those 10 units that we saw. Over here, magic, magic, magic. I'm telling you, slept good, but let me get some agua here. Oh, that hit the spot. Let's see what we got over here on the side. Some cav for physical. Let me see. We got Nika, whose I believe is... I like how they're... Oh, never mind. It was just a few units. I thought it was actually a little bit more. So, but I kind of like how they were... I mean, again, they're trying to get this second build off here, which is just nuts, man. I mean, they're pushing on 3 fronts. This is pretty cool to watch. I mean, there's a lot of PvP that's going on, and they're fighting here on a lower choke through this valley, right? That's kind of transitioned some of the fighting. You have the fighting here up here on the cliff that's happening with a flag trying to be built, and they're trying to build another flag all from up this choke point and trying to spread out. So this is decent stuff, man. KONs, UEH, man, again, still putting up a fight. Let's see what some of the numbers are, because I don't know if we've checked in here lately. Our boy, the Rip, J-Day, Meowmers, Ninja, what's up, all? Let's see where we're at power-wise. So we got KON on one side, RK3, VM. So you got the top 4 alliances, essentially, that are fighting. So you have 1 and 4, and then you have 2 and 3. That's probably as balanced as it's going to get. It's not obviously as close as it could be, but it's definitely more balanced than some of the other PvP fights that we've seen. And listen, I'm a fan of that. So anytime you're able to get matchups that are a little bit closer in power differential, and again, even if we just look at that again real quick, right? You have, what, about 100 mil over the second, and then obviously there's a bigger one. You have about a 900 mil difference between VM3 and UEH, so that's probably the biggest disparity. 1 and 2 are close. 1 and 4, yeah, obviously RK3 and VM, if you're just talking about total power, probably have about an 750, 800 mil advantage or up on those other two, but it's still a lot closer than some of the other matchups that we've seen in other merge kingdoms. So for that, man, I don't know if you guys ended up doing it that way on purpose or if it just happened that way by happenstance, but I will say this is always a pleasure when we can see that. Why? Because if the power is closer, you are always going to be more inclined to you will be more inclined to fight, and more players will be more inclined to fight because it doesn't immediately feel or present itself as a kind of losing battle. Now, I will say, like I mentioned before with the whole counterattack damage thing, if they removed counterattack damage, I have no doubt in my mind that this would be something. And again, for those that are saying, well, we can't really remove counterattack damage necessarily because of infantry units, I mean, you just give infantry a different toolkit. Right? You give them maybe you give them some more CC talents, for example. I like the control tree that some of the mages have. Maybe you make the tank tree a little bit more creative on being able to, like, for example, I like the fact that you can have your infantry speed up, right? If they're already engaging, they can speed up a little bit as they're getting closer to other units before they engage. That's something that I actually think is a great way to compensate and add in giving infantry a little bit more of a leg up, right? Where maybe infantry has their speed, maybe not as fast as cav, but if you increase the speed of infantry to be faster than archers and mages, that's actually something that I think could be a win. Right? Doesn't mean it has to be that much faster, but a little bit faster. Though these are ways that you could be creative with how you tinker, but not necessarily make it where you have to do like all this work to make it a little bit more OP, so to speak, right? You can increase speed, maybe you increase defense by a little bit. I mean, these are just some things. We're just throwing stuff out here. But the idea is where if you don't want to do a lot of work on kind of revamping a talent tree or revamping skill sets, you can do some small things, even just to the base stats, that can make it to where infantry can engage into fights a little bit faster, where they're not necessarily taking as much damage, so to speak, but or much damage up front. But again, these are things that I think overall would really do the game such a big justice when it comes to them being able to kind of promote themselves as the most competitive and the best PvP kingdom builder out there on the market, where just no one else can touch them. Like, that is a real tangible interest and appeal that at least I know a lot of players I play with and people that I've talked to would enjoy. Like, they love the idea of something like COD turning into more, doubling down on more kind of that traditional RTS style gameplay that, again, is crazy when you think about it like this, because, you know, in those types of games, it's like 1-on-1, maybe 2v2s if you do those here and there. You know, you're talking about hundreds of players in real time fighting it out and being able to have some level of mass organization and structure and tactics and communication that are being applied, kind of giving you that MMO type feel, but being done in more of a type of traditional RTS sense. It's just, I don't know, it's amazing when you think about it. The potential's awesome, and I do it, man. I love. I could watch PvP all day, right? Regardless of, you know, my critiques or, you know, what we're color commentating or what we're analyzing, I very much enjoy. And if anything, I hope maybe that's exuded through my voice, or people can maybe hear that or see that in my facial expressions here and there. But it is. I absolutely love watching PvP in COD, and I hopefully will never be able to say it enough. It is enjoyable. Like even just being able to do things like having on-field structures that you can build with the barricades. I think that's awesome. I don't know if we have any barricades that have been built so far around the ramp, but that's something that can kind of slow units down. That I don't know if they've done that yet on their side, building any barricades up here, or if it's kind of I don't even know where they're. Oh, I see. So they haven't even. Oh, I see. They're trying to build another flag. Is that what it is? I can't tell. Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah, my bad. That was the one we've been looking at for, like, hours. Or not hours, but the past 25 minutes. Wild. Let's see how this fight's going over here. Are they still going? Oh, wow. So they've actually pushed them off. That's pretty wild here. So they pushed them off of this VM flag. However, it looks like VM and RK3 are going to be replenishing enough to most likely re-engage that soon. KON still holding this line right now. And giving RK and VM just a nice run for the money along there with UEH. So, man, dude, not bad. This is pretty dope, man. I gotta post in here and just be like, hey, y'all. Been watching and recording for the past 25 minutes. Love the fighting and the more evenly matched 2v2. Gotta give shout outs where they're warranted, man. It's been awesome. So there's our girl JD. She's there. Don't run, JD. I see you. Don't be scared. I believe in you. I'm just joking. All right, let's see where we at right now. They're at 9% built. This is a little bit better, right? Where you're spreading out a little bit more, whether that's on purpose or accident. This is something I like. I would love for it to be a little bit more here. This is somewhat okay, but again, could be more based on what we're seeing. Doesn't look like anyone's trying to go for a flank anymore, though. I love the constant pressure that it applies, so. Let's see, I can't see what the percentage is, but they got 42 minutes left. Can I do it if I zoom in a little bit more? I can't. Still can't see the percentage. It's rough life. Okay, so, just getting caught overextended here, dying. Oh, never mind, no, dying boss. Oh, so this actually isn't bad here. I actually kind of like this play. Dying boss pushing up. Notice everyone focus fires, then they push back a little bit. Nice, and near Tears of Arbin being thrown down immediately. This, to me, whatever this short engagement was right here, I actually really kind of liked, because, at least for a moment, it felt as though we had 10, 12, 15 legions that were focus firing this unit, and they didn't overextend. And then the moment they came back, they threw Tears of Arbin down to throw down, taking advantage of the gap between their front line and then the KON UEH front line, recognizing, hey, they're not pushing us right now. This is a great heads-up opportunity to throw a Tear Arbin down to do a little bit of healing so we can replenish some health and then be a little bit better on that next re-engagement. That actually was a really nice play. Don't know if that was accidental. Someone will have to tell me in the comments below if that was on purpose, but I actually loved seeing that kind of small instance play out there. Some more acid bath being thrown down. It's always pretty apparent when you see the green fog. Shadow Games hitting 2 people. Again, lots of AoE coming out there. KON doing okay. Again, even in this situation, though, spread, like we talk about, spread out a little bit more. Just look at the depth, how deep you are, how pocketed the units are. You just don't want to take a lot of that unnecessary AoE damage. You can see them, again, on the upside, right, against some multiple negative reds. Looks like KON getting some nice replenishment, too. They got a lot of people back here, but I'm just shocked that, I mean, again, if you had all these players come in, fill out this left side or even the right side, I mean, this is the thing. Once you win, even if you find yourself being unable to really fight on multiple fronts or having multiple engagements, even if you focus on one front first, attack it, and then move over to the other, especially if you're not kind of getting pushed from the flank. Like, for example, you're not seeing these people over here pushing, so take advantage of that. Push this out. Once you push this out and you clear, then go over here, right? On the flip side, if you feel like, hey, we are very active and we can fight multiple fronts, then do that. But make sure you're trying to do it with a game plan. If you're fighting multiple fronts, it's typically good for you to have kind of frontline commanders or having multiple individuals, one for each front, that can kind of lead the charge, if you will, and speak to when it comes to orders and actions that need to be given out. Nice. All right, we're coming up to about 30 minutes here. PvP's been awesome. I wish I could hang out that much longer. Maybe one of these days I'll live stream. I know a bunch of people have been asking me about that. If, hey boss, could you just live stream for a day when, if there's a lot of kingdoms that are fighting and you can just kind of go to and from them and, go hang out. I'd love to. I really would. If I get to a point, I'll say this lastly. If I get to a point where, I'm just generally making enough money per month to where I could look at the numbers and say, hey, this makes sense, where I could maybe commit to doing the YouTube stuff full time and then even expand into streaming, which I'd love to show off some of those things and others as well, then yeah, I would. We're not quite there yet, and I also have to be able to justify it to the lady, because again, I do have a family, got three little ladies as well, or senoritas, if I will. And so yeah, just like anything, if you're running a business, if you want to try to expand or do or branch into other avenues, right, you have to be able to make good financial responsibilities, things that are going to be feasible to do. And so hopefully we'll get there one day. But again, I appreciate all the support, and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you like the matchup? Do you like the PvP we've been seeing? Do you think, hey, from watching this and from hearing some of the things that I talk about, giving some good insight into how your kingdoms or your alliances can kind of apply certain tactics and strategies going forward. And in addition, what other type of PvP or other types of kingdoms would you like to see me cover? Or even if it's just PvP in a different capacity or different way, let me know. Anything and everything down there in those comments below. That's going to be it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.